Okay, I'm trying this again. Hi, I am Cassandra Solano, and I am going to be talking about polyvagal theory and relationships today. And why does this matter? I'm also going to be recording this for my email list subscribers and for course later. So, hi on my phone that I'm recording at the same time. I've kind of got two screens going. Hi, May. Hi, Jessica. If you guys are jumping on, please say hello. Hi Trisha, hi Angie, hi Erin. Awesome. So we're gonna get a little science lesson today, which I really hope is going to maybe explain some of the reasons why maybe you feel like you act the way you do in relationships, or have some of the responses or triggers that you do in relationships, to hopefully empower you just with some more info about how your body works. And hi and take some of the shame and some of the guilt out of maybe why you are responding the way you're responding. And this is explained by what Dr. Stephen Porges calls polyvagal theory. And a licensed clinical social worker named Deb Dana has really taken this and put it into practical application. That is definitely a huge part of my work and how I work with clients. But I want to give you guys this education before we start the challenge. So as we're going in, you kind of understand what I am saying when I say you're in red, you're in green, or you're in yellow state. So let's talk more about that. Hi, Rosie. Hi, Erin. Thanks for saying hi, guys, and joining. Okay, so quick biology lesson is that we all have this autonomic nervous system. Maybe in elementary school you were taught about your nervous system, which was pretty much the nervous system is what tells physical sensation. You put your hand on something hot and it tells your brain, that's hot, you got to move your hand, right? And that's kind of as far as a lot of us got with understanding our nervous system, that it is, about physical sensation and physical touch, but it is so much more than that. Your nervous system can actually pick up on vibes. It can pick up on biochemical reactions in other people. Like if other people are having adrenaline or cortisol, which is a stress hormone, increase in their body, you can feel it. Your nervous system also has this thing in your brain called mirror neurons, which really reflect back what other people are seeing or experiencing. So think about yawning. How often do you yawn just because somebody else yawns? You don't see them yawn and go, oh, I'm gonna yawn too. You just kind of do it. And that's called mirror neurons. So a big part of your nervous system is this thing called a vagus nerve. And it is something that connects your brain to your heart and to your stomach, and then kind of goes back up to your face. And if we think about how we feel and express emotions, especially when we're excited or feeling triggered, this kind of makes a lot of sense that we feel a lot of these sensations in our heart and in our stomach. And that we are always taking in information, like always, even when we think we're not. Just like the yawn, it's kind of happening unconsciously without our permission. The system is kind of always on. So 3 kind of core tenets of the polyvagal theory, and why do you need to know this, and what does this have to do with helping you improve your relationships? So I just got notes here because I could talk about this forever, and there's a lot to talk about. Hi, Tugba, nice to see you. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that there's a hierarchy. And a lot of us have heard of fight or flight response, or even fight or flight or freeze. So polyvagal theory kind of organizes this in like a hierarchy or a ladder that kind of helps us plot it out in this nice map that really helps us kind of plug in and see where our children, even where our partners or spouses might be at on this hierarchy. I think about it as a stoplight, like an upside down stoplight with a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. And each of these colors is kind of like a different zone of how you're feeling physically in your body when it comes to, fight, flight, or freeze. So the red zone let's call it the red zone, is your dorsal vagal response. So this is kind of like the primal response. It is when we're feeling shut down, when we're feeling so overwhelmed. It could be like the freeze response. We might have cloudy thinking. We might feel low energy, not motivated. And when we stay in this zone for long enough of kind of shutdown, it could turn into things like depression. And this is a response that kicks in when we feel so overwhelmed or so in fear. Maybe we're like there's trauma or something happening that a part of our brain goes, we can't fight our way out of this and we can't run. So we're just gonna kind of freeze and play dead. Imagine it like how a possum plays possum, where they just kind of lay down on the road and maybe, try to play dead because they know they can't escape their predator, and they're either hoping that the predator will think that they are dead and kind of lose interest and move on, or they're hoping that the predator will, if the coyote kills them, that they won't feel it as much because you're kind of disconnected from your body at that point. We can all tap into this state throughout the day. I know I've been busy at work and I'll go into a room and I'll be like, or even in my house, like in the kitchen, like, what did I come in here for? And kind of have that experience of like my head and my body not being connected. And that's just kind of going into that state for just a moment. But many of us can end up living here for years, and this is where it can become problematic. Many of us grew up in homes where there was lack of safety, where there was a lot of tension, maybe where there was yelling, and we might have kind of gone into this red state to protect ourselves, to kind of maybe put up walls as a long-term survival response to living in this state. So let me know if you guys have any questions as I'm going. You can, respond with any, I'm not seeing any likes or hearts. I don't know if it's showing up for me, but if you guys have questions, please let me know. Or if you need me to repeat something, please let me know. So sometimes, if we or our partners have had trauma or just a lot of, not even huge trauma experiences, but unsafe, dysfunctional households. They had a parent that was an alcoholic. Remember, we don't have to have experienced major trauma growing up to have had our nervous systems kind of wired a little funky from lack of safety, lack of connection, lack of nurturing. And so if you are feeling kind of disconnected or checked out, or if you feel like your partner kind of does that, it can feel like, where did they go? We're not connecting. And it may be that they are kind of in the red zone, in this dorsal vagal zone. Let's jump up to the yellow light. The yellow light is kind of the fight or flight or sympathetic response. And this is where we are feeling more activated, which is great because we can only kind of move up the ladder one state at a time. We can go from red to yellow and then yellow to green. And green is kind of where we want to live, so I'll talk about that next. But yellow is what we typically think about fight or flight. Fight meaning we kind of get that tunnel vision. We kind of get to that point where we can only see our point. We want to talk about an argument, or we want to hash it out right now. No, we can't wait. We have to talk about this. I want to argue. I can get very locked in and I want to prove my point. Or, flight response is I'm feeling flooded, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I might be feeling scattered, I feel like I just want to say F this, I'm leaving, or I want to, kind of abandon the conversation because it's just so overwhelming for me. It's I want to get out of here. So when we're feeling pulled to one of these responses, we know that we're kind of in that yellow state. The problem with being in red or being in yellow is that it's really hard to communicate and to really have empathy and really see and hear and feel where the other person is coming from. Because when we're in red, where we're kind of shut down or checked out or disconnected, or when we're in yellow, we're very fixed on trying to just defend ourselves and to prove our point. We can get very locked and very rigid in defending our perspective or being in attack mode. And there is going to be very little possibility for healthy communication, for conflicts to be resolved in a fair way, for resolution to kind of come. It can just kind of become, we're arguing, we're talking, we're trying to figure something out. But if we're in yellow, it's more about winning and losing. It's not so much about hearing the other person out and really coming to a place where you can compromise and make the other person really feel and heard and understood. Rosie says, very relatable. Awesome. Thank you for commenting. And again, let me know if you guys need me to clarify anything. So the goal is to be in the green zone, which is called ventral vagal. And this is a place where we are happy, or at least chill, calm, relaxed. We feel safe. We feel like we're in flow. We feel like we can play, we can laugh, we're connected. Think about, when you are doing something that you really enjoy, if you're writing, if you're painting, if you're riding your bicycle, if you're playing with your kids, just if there's a time in your life where you could just be really present and in the moment, that is really like the green kind of inflow state. And if you grew up in a dysfunctional household, in a household with alcoholism, the green state might feel like very like, what is that? Like, I'd never even had that, or I've never experienced that, or if maybe it was just for a moment. And we want to increase the experience of you living in the green state. And most of my clients, when I have them do the assignment, I'm going to kind of ask you guys to do in preparation for the challenge, which is to really start paying attention and kind of just maybe journaling at the end of the day, every day. What state am I in? And when am I in the red zone? That kind of dorsal vagal shutdown zone. And what kind of triggers that? Am I just kind of there at work where I'm just going through the motions because I really don't care for my job and I'm just kind of like existing there? When am I in yellow, and what triggers that? Oh, well, I'm in yellow when my boss sends me an email asking me to do something maybe I wasn't anticipating coming my way, and it gets my heart going a little bit, and it kind of triggers me into that fight or flight response, that anxiety response. And when am I in green? When do I feel like I'm in that flow state? Maybe it's just when I'm in the shower and I'm listening to music that I enjoy, and that's about it. So there's no judgment here for any of this, because we are the way we are and kind of tend to reside in the states that we reside in as survival responses or adaptations to trauma. So in my adolescence years, my household growing up was pretty chaotic. My dad was, had relapsed on alcohol after being sober for like the first 10 years of my life. And there was just a lot of drama. And even before then, he kind of was a workaholic. And I would often just stay in my room and read all weekend. And then as I got older, I just started disconnecting more and more from myself. And as I started to experience some abuse from another person in my family, I became more and more disconnected from my body. And I realized that in my first marriage, I was kind of in red most of the time, because I was just trying to go to work, go to school, have kids, do all of the things. And I was just kind of existing and not really living and connected and feeling alive and feeling joy and, feeling just that peace and ease and in flow. It was always kind of disconnected and just going through the motions of that red state, or it was like yellow state. And so what most of my clients find as they start tracking what state are they in through the day and kind of what's triggering it is that their often default is a red or a yellow state, the dorsal vagal or the sympathetic fight or flight state. And that's okay. There's no judgment. It might just help explain why, if you come home after a long day and you're in red, or if you're in yellow, and so you're already kind of, not in the best state to like receive, unexpected stimuli, like your partner's like, oh my God, we have this bill that just came, or your kids are acting up, or whatever it might be, that you're kind of already like primed for defense or primed for attack. And so the work is to get ourselves into the green state as often as we can. And it's a process. Maybe you've spent most of your life living in red or living in yellow. And living in green, again, might feel kind of foreign. So it's just like a muscle, like anything else in the body. And the more that we practice self-awareness and knowing what state we're in, the more that we work towards using and implementing coping skills to get us up the ladder from red to yellow and then yellow to green, the more that we will be able to live in green and over time make that our new default state. And there's seasons and all that to all of this too. You know, of course, if you're in a time and a place in your life where you're struggling financially or you just got a divorce, you know, things are happening that you might be feeling like, yeah, you might be living in more yellow, and that's okay. Just, you know, first and foremost, have compassion for yourself for where you're at, but also know if you are listening to this and understanding and processing this information, then this is now not an excuse to kind of just be checked out and not be present and invested in your relationship. This is not an excuse to be like, oh, well, I have anxiety because I'm in sympathetic response, and so you just have to deal with it. No, my loves. Like, this is now an opening and an invitation for you to start cultivating some more self-awareness for what state are you in, what tends to trigger it, and then to be able to take self-accountability and self-responsibility to be implementing coping skills to help you move up the ladder, to help you go from the red to the yellow and the yellow to the green. So that is kind of the first big part of polyvagal theory, is this hierarchy. Before I move on to the next section, the next two sections, which are a lot shorter, does anyone have any questions? No, there's a couple people online, I think so. Just gonna pause for a second. Okay, what is the exact difference between the red zone and the yellow zone? In the red zone, we don't even respond. We're in the yellow, we are defending ourselves. Okay, great question. Yeah, so in the red state, you're kind of more disconnected and checked out. Like, you're not even fighting at that point. And sometimes we kind of feel like we need to go to red. Like, maybe you're just like gonna check out and binge watch Netflix for 4 hours on a Saturday because you had a really stressful week and your body is just like, I cannot keep doing this. You've been in yellow too long, and when we're in yellow too long, eventually the body gets like tired and it's going to bring you down a red so you can rest, because you're not resting yourself. This is like another explanation for like burnout, when you're living in the yellow too long, in fight or flight too long, and then your body's just like, okay, you're not going to take a break, I'm going to take a break for you. So yeah, imagine like red is just plain possum. You're just like, kind of feel like given up, checked out, disconnected, you know, cloudy mind, maybe even feeling like you're depressed. And then in yellow is the fight or flight response. So it's more active. There's actually energy going on, but we have our dukes up because we're in fight response, or we're just like, psh, I'm out, like, you know, and maybe we're just feeling like we want to flee or to exit a relationship or a situation. But in that state, in the yellow state, we can only see things as good or bad. So this is actually a really important point that I want to make. If you are in yellow, if you are in anxiety, if you are in trigger mode, you can only perceive things as like safe or a threat, because that part of your brain, your primal part of your brain, is what's in charge. So your spouse or your partner might say something like sarcastic or like just kidding, or maybe they're not being very direct. And if you're feeling triggered or if you're feeling stressed, you're only going to be able to see that as good or bad. And if it's sarcasm or if it's something that's being said not clearly, you're probably going to like assume the worst. You're probably going to read into it the wrong way. You're probably going to see it as a threat. So I know for me, when I'm feeling stressed and then my husband like says something and I'm like, oh, is he being mean right now? Because I know I'm in yellow, I'll just stop and ask for clarification. Like, hey honey, are you like being serious or are you not? Because like, I'm stressed right now. I'm in sympathetic and I cannot tell the difference. And I feel like you're like being mean. And he's like, no, like, I was just saying, like, I prefer this over that, or it's like something he's just trying to give me feedback around. But if I'm not in green, then I am not able to receive that and to hear that. Okay, I want to touch really quick on the next two things. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Yes, yellow is anxious for me. Absolutely. So yeah, and so the goal here is to check yourself, to get yourself regulated, to try to keep yourself in green as much as possible, but also when you're noticing your yellow and red, to meet yourself or meet your partner or your children with compassion and knowing that there is something that they're sensing that's causing them to be that way. So that brings me to the second point, which is neuroception, which again is what I said is like the vibes or the energy, these mirror neurons, like the information that your body is constantly bringing in without your brain realizing it. About 80 to 90% of the information that comes into our brain comes in through the body first, and then it comes up into the brain, where the brain just kind of processes it and runs the raw data through this whole algorithm of all our past experiences, our belief, our culture, our conditioning, like our traumas, and then it like filters the raw data that we're receiving, and it kind of prints out this final report of what we think it means, but what we think what we're perceiving means and what actually is happening are two very different things. I always tell like my couples, like there's your truth and there's your truth, and then there's the truth, and I know that's true for my relationship too, because what's more important is our perception more than actual reality, because we have this brain with all of these filters that kind of like skew our experience a little bit. And this is always on, where our body is constantly bringing in and receiving information through neuroception, so much more than we might be consciously aware of. And if we're living especially kind of in a red or a yellow state where we don't have that mind-body connection, where we're not living present, where the head and the heart don't feel connected, there's a lot of data and a lot of information kind of in the body that might even be getting kind of plugged up from coming up here, where we can really make sense of it. So it stays down here and it just starts to build up. And then we have, chest pains, we have stomach aches, we, put on extra weight and we carry things on. And a lot of us had to do this because to feel all the pain of physical trauma, emotional trauma, which the body reads the same as physical trauma, in our childhood was like too overwhelming. Like if all of that data came up to our brains, we would maybe like snap. So as a brilliant survival mechanism, our brains are like, okay, we're just going to kind of cut off here, and we're not going to really feel too much what's going on down here, and we're just going to kind of live up here. This is why a lot of reading self-help books and going to cognitive kind of therapies only go so far, because it keeps us up here, when really all of our repressed memories, our repressed trauma, so much data and information that's coming in lives from the neck down, and why body-based and somatic approaches are really, really important to incorporate in your healing. This is pure gold. I lived most of my emotional life in yellow, sometimes red. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So glad this is connecting for you. And I think most of us do, especially if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, if you grew up in a dysfunctional household, even in like our society with all the electronics and all of the pressure and like all of the fast pace, like our nervous systems have not caught up to modern living. That is for sure. The last thing I want to touch on before I go today is co-regulation. So we have to co-regulate before we self-regulate. And this is why it's important to have a support group, to have a therapist, a coach, a 12-step sponsor, somebody that you can connect with, because to make this move from red to yellow and then yellow to green, we can do it, but to do it faster, to do it better, do it and reach out for support. Have somebody help you through it. So I had a client that was having panic attacks at work. It was like making it hard for her to focus. And so we made a plan that she was going to start going out on walks to help her discharge some of that flight energy and help her go from yellow to green. And then we added on, go for a walk and find someone who's like safe, who's not drama, who's like a green person to go with you, because they will help pull you up into green even faster on your walk than you just walking alone. So, you know, co-regulation and connection is so important. Now we can think about, what can I do in my relationship to invite regulation in my partner or in my children versus reactivity? Because if we're in yellow or if we're in red and we want our partner to calm down or our kids to calm down, we are literally sending signals to them that it's not safe, danger, threat. And we have to, you know, do our part to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. Love it. And get ourselves regulated, and so we can invite them to come along. So we want to support each other and support ourselves to live in the green more often, to feel safe and connected. And when we're in this place, our communication and our relationships, our connection with our bodies and our intimacy and our sex life, which is like a whole other topic, is so much more quality. And the outcome of our you know, arguments or conflicts or things that we need to like hash out are so much more fruitful when we're both in ventral or both in green. So if you guys like this, you know, share this video, invite your friends into the challenge. If you know someone or your partner, you know, share the video with them. I love this because, you know, sometimes psychology or like spirituality, and I'm very woo, can be a little off-putting for some people, and sometimes understanding like this is science, this is your biology, this is how you're wired, and it can change and it can be healed, can be really, really helpful and supportive. So definitely, you know, share the video, share this information with your loved ones, even like your parent or your siblings, and start kind of noticing and tracking what state you're in throughout different times of the day, and kind of what things trigger you or help you to go down the ladder, you know, red light, yellow light, green light, no, green light, yellow light, red light, or help you come back up. And we're gonna be talking more about this in the challenge. I couldn't have made this process without your co-regulation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have some really awesome clients here that are accommodating, and I so appreciate you guys. Okay, so I gotta jump off and get on a client session. I am so looking forward to the challenge. I might do another bonus training next week. But in the meantime, just be, you know, tracking yourself and just holding yourself with compassion, because you are wired the way you're wired because you had to survive and get through some tough shit. And now we're gonna change it so you can have better relationships. Okay, guys, I love you so much, and I will talk to you later, all right? Bye, everyone.